A few days ago, I gave a talk centered around the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And so I selected a topic this evening, which would be a kind of extension to that, because the chapter not only is telling us that there are two possible avenues, two possible paths to go along. Just to remind you, recap about some of it, that some Sankhya yoga prithaga balaha pravadanti na praditaha. The childish, not the wise, speak of the path of knowledge and the path of action as different. But he who is truly established in one obtains the fruit of both. Now, the Bhagavad Gita was designed to reconcile many different philosophical positions. That's the wonderful nature of the Bhagavad Gita. Because over time, things change, opinions change, reactions change, society changes, and different schools of thought develop. And what it's doing is taking what is called Jnana Yoga, that is the path of the imperishable, the immaterial, the unmanifest. And the principal discipline or spiritual practice in this is what is called discernment. More specifically, a question of looking at everything that is being presented and eliminating the things which are not permanent or which are impermanent. That means really pretty much everything in the external world. Because if we remove space completely, all objects disappear, and objects don't remain the same, they come, they go. And even states of consciousness, we are told in the Upanishads, is the one element missing in the Bhagavad Gita, the three states of consciousness. They're coming and they're going. And as we study science much, much more and more, we realize the uncertainty and the imperishability of what is there. One question that came up, connected with this evening, would be, is there any limit to our understanding or to being, or, the more we look, the more we see. It seems to be infinite and puts things in our perspective. But this is labeled Sankhya for convenience term. And then the other is really another path, which is the path of action. Well, we're familiar with the path of action, or we're familiar with action anyway. We're all busy people involved in careers, or involved in the world at large, and continuously active. We can't remain still for a moment, increasingly so in an age of technology that encourages us to be more and more active. And maybe in an effort to slow that down, we can take a lot of the activities and we can delegate it to artificial intelligence or something like that these days. But that doesn't reduce the business. Ask anybody who lives in a metropolis. I was told just recently here now by a devotee that in Harare in Zimbabwe, the population is now grown to some immense proportion. But that is the case in cities because people gravitate toward that. Since the 19th century, industrialization, that has been the trend. People thinking they will get prosperity there. And in the countryside, the agriculture, we have to question what happens to that. In every developing nation, more and more housing is taking place. That means more and more of the land is being flattened and more concrete is being inserted. So we are living in an age of busyness, an age where population is increased and where to go away on, to the forest or something, we have to take a holiday to do it, that kind of thing. But this is registered as a path, that is a spiritual path, a spiritual practice. Two spiritual practices, therefore, are overall generalized as ways. But if you think they are different, says Krishna, then you are actually not wise at all. You're childish. Very strong term. But then he will go on to say, Yat Samkhyayaha Prapyati Sthanam the state reached by people of knowledge, people of wisdom, is also attained by people of action. You arrive at the same goal. And the one who sees the way of knowledge and that of action as one, that person is correct. They see indeed. Just imagine now going to a destination, let's say a mountain top, and see it as a goal, finding out the top of the mountain. And supposing all paths being equal, one person takes one way and the other person takes another way, should we argue which path, as long as we all meet? As I arrive at the top, I see the other man's head come. And he's also arrived. And he declares, oh, I came first. Or I came. Actually, we arrived together. So noticing that, the question arises about different ways, different methods, different paths, different practices. And invariably, the one question that comes up repeatedly is, in the midst of busy life, how can I practice spiritual life, my spiritual practice, otherwise called sadhana? And my reply is, the reply, not only the reply in the scriptures, scriptural reply is, actually, spiritual practice, what we call sadhana, is for everyone. There are no exceptions, because we hear many excuses. Oh, as monks, you have a privileged position. We can understand how you can practice, do spiritual practice, but we householders, we can't do it. I remember having a conversation, I think it was over tea or something, at a devotee's house in London. And they said, yeah, but for us ordinary people, I said, well, stop there. Everyone is extraordinary. You are all extraordinary. What is your path immediately? Where you stand, that's your path. So where you stand, that's your path. And it's no good saying, well, I never did this, I never did that in the last 5 minutes or the last 5 years. Spiritual path means where you stand, that's where you're going. It's like you're on the journey. Inevitably, we all are, by the way. You can consider that much. And you're halted at a place. And then you're asking, well, what's the next step? You won't get it by retracing your steps backwards. You won't get it by standing still. You'll get it by finding out the way. And if you lost your path, you ask somebody or you find it out in some way or another, and you continue your journey knowing that you're fully equipped for it. What we have as a human body mind is fully equipped for this discovery. It is fully equipped, as I always say, for transforming discord into harmony. We have a mechanism like that, a mind like that. So what do we mean by spiritual practice? It is the art of tuning the attention continuously into the glory of the divine that we find everywhere if we look at it or if we look for it. We can find it in the vastness of space. We can find it in the concept, at least it's a concept of infinity. We can't grasp it with the human mind. And when we see more examples of it, we stand aghast. And one important reaction takes place. We realize our smallness in the whole scheme of things. Now, smallness does not mean insignificant, because it's a relative term. Is a table big? Well, if you're an ant, it's immense. But if you're an elephant, it's nothing. You crush it with 1 foot. So things related to size and all that are all relative. And when we look about the infinite universe, we're looking at a vastness of space that is unlike our small space. But that is only because we are looking at it from the physical point of view. More subtle than that will be the psychological point of view. Because how will you fence in the mind and say these are the borders? Body, you can do it. But mind has no boundary like that. In fact, even the physical energy which we have doesn't seem to have a boundary, because there seems to be electromagnetism involved. When we do kinesiology tests, for example, we can immediately see that by looking at somebody strangely, we upset their whole magnetic field. That can be tested through muscle testing. Every person knows it, actually. Even animals know it. Dogs know when the master is coming home. It's a fact. When you're walking and somebody is watching you from behind, you know it. So how is that, you see? There cannot be too much of a separation between so-called individuals on the mental plane. And our philosophy says if you go back and back and back causally, you'll come to one conclusion. Only one broadcasting station is there. We call it God. Only one cosmic mind is there. And by tuning into that, we've tuned into the infinite cosmos. So we can access infinity, and when we stand where the Lord stands, sitting on his throne, seeing things as he sees them, then we are in a commanding position. Spiritual practice is therefore obtaining a commanding position, not a submissive condition. It may begin, and has to begin, with a sense of humility. If you take this Practicing of the Presence by Brother Lawrence, he writes in a letter called Eighth Letter. He says, even before that, he addresses in a seventh letter to somebody called Madam N. He says, we have a God infinitely good and who knows what we need. I've always believed that he would bring you to ultimate affliction, pain. Why? Our goal is freedom. Why is our goal freedom? Because we don't want to be inflicted by limitations. And when we don't see beyond any borders and just are happy to glide along with the subconscious or the habit level apparently in control, then this results in painful experiences. There's no doubt. So what will we do, he says? Hope in him more than ever when these afflictions arise. And then in his eighth letter, he says this. You tell me nothing. You are not the only one to be troubled by your thoughts. What is spiritual practice? Spiritual practice is to take stock. What are the thoughts doing? What's happening in the mental field at any given time? Stop. That means I'm not the mind. And surely if I'm not the mind, I'm not the body. And yet in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us, you see, this path of Jnana Yoga or Sankhya, this path of the imperishable and so on, that's very difficult because some requirements are there. Complete control of the senses are required. That's one thing. A kind of dedicated spiritual practice. In a busy life, not many people will go for it. Another thing that is mentioned is that there has to be that kind of withdrawal has to be there. But another thing that is told to us is we have to be available for the welfare of all beings. Another thing that is required is that we have to be even-minded in all conditions. And when we take a look at our reactions, and the question arises, do we have even reactions? Are we even-minded in all circumstances? In other words, is it like a ship on the seas? And everybody on board in a storm, do we remain calm? Do we have access to an inner calm area of poise where we can direct things from there immediately as a first reaction, with the knowledge that actually all of this is passing, events are passing, people are passing, bodies are passing, it's all passing. The only thing that stands there is the infinite. If we are absolutely convinced of that, with no sense of embodiment, then well and good. But is it easy? And then the welfare of all beings. Well, everybody seems to have a kind of bias which says, yes, I can help this person out, that person, no, they deserve their bad luck and so on. We make judgments. But do we have the generosity to be of use for the welfare of every single being on the basis of a unity of existence? As long as we see individualities, in other words, not only our bodies, but other people's bodies, then what is the way out? Well, we're coming back to Brother Lawrence. He says, yes, our mind is always given to roving, but since the will is the mistress of all our powers, it should recall the mind and bear it to God, its final end. So, just review what is being said, exactly what we have said now, but in a slightly different way. So, we surely have a free will. We surely have some controlling entity, some part of the mind which acts like an executive officer and says, this is a decision I will make, or having gone along the road of maybe a bad decision, we can halt it at any point in time and say, we change the course. In control. Many, many songs from many saints address themselves to the mind. Oh, my mind, like a kindly aunt or uncle giving advice, steering it correctly. The one song that Naran and later Swami Vivekananda sang, Krishna, Manocharo it's called, and he said, oh, my mind, why do you wander? Why do you stay away from your home? Why do you wander around in a foreign land? Why don't you go home? And what is this home? It would be this infinite aspects, this infinite entity. This eternal is the home. But can we grasp it immediately? So he says, recall the mind, bring it back, take the attention back. And when the mind which has not been early subdued, don't leave it to the last moment. If you haven't done it in the past, do it, start it now. Has developed some bad habits of wandering and inattention. They are difficult to overcome, and they draw us commonly, in spite of ourselves, to earthly things. What we call spiritual practice is exactly that. It's practice, and practice means repetition. Every time we see the attention drawing away from the infinite invisible, we take stock and bring it back. Come on, and bring it back kindly, patiently. He says, I believe that the cure for this is to confess all our faults and to humble ourselves before the divine. That's the taking stock. First of all, okay, I'm not perfect. All right. Behind every great saint is a sinner who used to be in that condition and made a reformation, largely speaking. Very rarely that you'll find somebody born perfectly, going along the perfect line. No, they wouldn't be human if that was the case. So, what do we learn? Any form of learning. What is modern science? It's correcting all the errors of the past and creating new errors, and a new generation corrects those errors, and some stick and some move on. You know, in this modern age, where people are so certain, somehow, that science will discover everything, they forget this historical aspect of science, that actually things have been erroneous and corrected. And the most recent corrections are what we call modern science. And who knows, maybe they're open to further corrections. So we have to be humble ourselves. In other words, I recall a conversation with Ramakrishna, and Ramakrishna is praised and so on. And he says the equivalent of, no, I am lower than a worm. Imagine, the great Ramakrishna, light of the world, I am lower than the worm. Imagine going to the house of a low-caste person and doing it in the dead of night, cleaning their toilet and drying it with his long hair and leaving at night so he won't be discovered. and a protest doesn't occur. Imagine the humility of that. Oh, you are good, Master. No, only God is good, says Jesus. Why do you call me good? And he who wants to be first will be last. Who wants to be last will be first. I recently went on a long walk, 40 kilometers over 2 days. And I didn't want to be first. Therefore, I was last. Not exactly. I was just automatically last. Anyway, he says, I do not advise you much talking and prayer, for much talking is often an occasion for wandering. See the psychology of spirituality. Hold yourself before God like a poor dumb person or a paralytic at a rich man's gate. Give your attention, keeping your mind in the presence of the Lord. If it wanders and withdraws at times, don't be disturbed. To trouble the mind serves more often to distract than to recall. The will must call it back quietly. If you persevere in this, God will have pity on you. In other words, grace will flow. One way to recall the mind easily during the time of prayer and to keep it more at rest is not to allow it to strive too much during the day, because 99.99% of your day will crowd in, and really practicing the presence is doing it all the time, and that is called karma yoga, technically. It says it must be kept strictly in the presence of God, being accustomed to remember Him from time to time. It will be easy to remain quiet during your prayers, or at least to recall the mind from its straying. That's the secret, that's the key. Cultivate your peace of mind in your working, waking life. Then you can see how wisdom is eternal. So let's get back now to the Bhagavad Gita and see specifically a chapter, Yoga Devotion. Why? Because, you see, it's very hard for those who have a feeling of embodiment. The person with strong body consciousness will find it hard to contemplate the imperishable. That's the reason. And so the discipline in this path involves, as I said, these three things: control of the senses, remaining even-minded, and ever intent on the welfare of all beings. And the path is easier for those who offer their activities then, all their actions, to the Lord. We can do it in several ways. Offering the actions, or the fruits of our actions, before and after an activity, repeating the Lord's name as we do it, but also incorporating, mobilizing the heart, because when you offer, it's not an unemotional thing. If you are, say, the most famous thing in February, Valentine's Day, and you only offer that, I remember somebody saying to me, no, I don't give anybody flowers on Valentine's Day. Every day should be Valentine's Day. And so why not give flowers every day? And so offering these activities to the Lord and meditating on Him as the supreme goal. In order to do that, we need to fix the mind somewhere, fix the attention on the Lord. And the Lord Himself grants such a worshipper what he needs. All the resources are supplied. And by doing that, the Lord lifts him above the ocean whose waves are birth and death and so on. So if the devotee finds it difficult to direct his mind and intellect wholly to God, same in every religion. Love the Lord your God with all your mind, all your sense, your whole being. In Islam, the whole meaning of Islam is submission to the will, divine will, all of that. If you're not able to do it, then what will your spiritual practice be, and how will it exclude people? First of all, we've excluded those people who find it difficult to control the senses fully, to be even-minded, to be concerned with the welfare of all beings, being a dedicated person like that. So that person is eliminated for many, for the vast majority probably. So what is the alternative? We have to fix our minds on the infinite, invisible God. But if you cannot do that, what? Now here's the practicality of this Bhagavad Gita, how Krishna deals with this. He says, first of all, those who concentrate all their actions in me, yetu sarvani karmani mayi samyasya matparaha ananyenai va yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. Those who concentrate all their activities, these are mental activities, physical activities, actions of the hands, actions of the legs, actions of the body, to me, that is to the Lord of the universe, regarding me as the supreme goal, and who worship me, meditating on me with single-minded devotion, what will happen? Tishamaham samudartha mrityom samsara sagarat. To them whose minds are thus absorbed in me, I truly soon become the deliverer from the ocean of misery, transmigratory existence, beset with death. We believe in reincarnation of foolishness only. Then he says, and this is not, he's going to say it again, Mayeva mana adatsa mayi buddhim nivesha. Fix your mind on what? On me alone. Then the question arises, but in the midst of all activities, how is it possible? In the midst of so many random thoughts that Brother Lawrence mentions, let your thoughts dwell on me. And after that, if you do that, you live in me alone. And he says, in case you're doubting it, he says, actually, of this, there's no doubt. Now, you've now somehow excluded another section of people who want to practice. But he says, with great compassion and practicality, atachitam samadhartam na shaknosi mayi stiram abhyasa yoga tatvamam ichaptam dhananjaya. If you are not able to fix your mind steadily on me, vast majority of people, then seek to reach me by the yoga of constant practice. That is the way of counter thoughts. Taking stock every time your attention wanders off, even in the midst of activities. Have a mechanism to bring it back. Now, the next question is, how do you do that? So let's try to summarize. Normally, those who have attended talks in the past, and I dropped it for a number of years now, I should bring it back, is to have a whiteboard in front of me. And there I'd normally draw a circle. I'd divide it in half. I'd put the emblem of a person on the left-hand side. I'd label that, this is B, body. I'd put a circle around the head, C, consciousness, mind, my mind. Then I'd put in the other half, all kinds of people, places, events. In other words, the world at large that I'm trying to interact with. That interaction is a distraction. That interaction, even assessing the great, great depths of space, becomes within my small pure view because it doesn't exist unless I look at it. Unless I look through a telescope, I won't see anything. Unless I get reports from the latest James Webb telescope that is going off and discovering galaxies that should not be there and so on, and going off infinitely, presumably same in every direction. Cosmological principle has to be the same in every direction, isotropic and homogeneous. Well, I'm not sure if it's like that, because if you smooth it out, the further you go, it should be like that. And yet, we find it's still clumpy. So I'm not sure if the easy way of saying, oh, same in all directions. It's there because we don't want the earth to be the center of everything. And so it has to be the same in direction. There's no special place, in other words, in the universe. But having said that, well, actually, it's clumpy. Sorry, it's clumpy. And there are big, big, well-formed galaxies that go back to probably 300,000 years after the proposed Big Bang. It shouldn't be there. So how to explain that? Oh, you push the time frame back. That's easy. In other words, you don't find an explanation for it. You fudge it. So one way of looking at it then, if you're caught up in this embodied position, is to accept it. And then to look beyond the small circle, and that's where you'll find the infinite Lord of the universe. And by shifting your attention away from the people and places and objects in front, you shift your attention to that. Not only do you shift your attention to that, but that is pure consciousness that pervades all of this fleeting existence. So you'll find it everywhere. Having understood that, you'll find it in every person. You'll find it in every place. You'll find it in every event, in every scene, if you have eyes to see it. And then it becomes a worship. And so we bring the mind back. Now the other way of looking at it will be, and we can shift it, is to stand beyond the circle and look there and stand in the position of the witness that witnesses three states of consciousness, not just one, not just the waking consciousness, but the very world of dream, and also that world of unconsciousness, which is really called the deep, deep sleep, induced actually by medication when you're put into a coma, that kind of thing. So we have to devise ways in the conscious mind of altering, changing the pulling power of your personality, which is the unconscious mind. Asserting truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony continuously brings it back. And understanding primarily that there is a purpose behind all the mental movements. If the less evolved people, their drive is mainly just from the unconscious. There's no control. Brother Lawrence puts it like that as well. We have will to change it. But trained minds, in other words, minds that are smoothed out, if you will, given a direction through sadhana, spiritual practice, they can take stock of all the impulses and they can exert their conscious pressure to check them. They can alter, the idea of stock is there in Brother Lawrence also, they can alter the total pulling power of the personality. So the purpose is actually the cause of doing anything. And it's sustaining, it also has a sustaining power, it's also the result of spiritual practice as well. So it's the beginning, the middle, and the end. The whole thing is spiritual practice. But it's doing it with a purpose in mind. And the purpose is a desire to be free from the limitations and imperfections that the small circle of humanity imposes on us, seems to impose. So can it be done by everyone? Well, yes, but the will has to be there. It has to be linked to the purpose. We have to start off with a resolve. Without the resolve, nothing is moving. And only any starting point is our starting point. Our starting point is where we stand or sit here and now. And our spiritual practice has to be developed wholeheartedly. Because as I mentioned a few days ago, quoting Patanjali Yoga Sutra, success is speedy for the highly energetic who apply. So, the Bhagavad Gita becomes a harmonizing synthesis of spiritual practice. It is there resulting in peacemakers. That means then that you would have no basis to argue with anybody. Strong body consciousness is hard to contemplate, imperishable with that. And so we make an offering of all our activities. Abhyasa yoga, noticing that the mind is wandering, bringing it gently back. Gently, like we do with a horse or a dog or another animal. Oh, my mind, come on, you're wandering off. Let's go back. Then japa is a useful tool in this case, continuously repeating the name of the divine. And it is Ramakrishna gives a fourfold formula suitable for everyone. Continuously in your heart sing the glories of the divine. Every time we say strong, we become strong. Every time we say wise, we become wise. Every time we say full, we become filled with fullness. Every time we say true, we become pure. Every time we say love, we fill with love. Because we think in words. And so, we bring the mind back constantly. The attention has to come back. So, those who worship me, fixing their minds on me, ever steadfast, endowed with supreme faith, that's the important thing, then these are the best in contemporary situation here. Now, fixing your mind on me alone, what if you cannot do that? What if all your best efforts fail? What if the pull of the world is too strong? What if you are struggling and get frustrated? Well, atam chitam, we mentioned this before, samadhatum na shaknosi mayi stiram. Then seek to reach me by constant practice. But if you cannot even do that, then what? Is there another way? Yes, abhyasi, abhyasamartusi, mat karma parama bhava. If you're incapable of even this constant practice, bringing the mind back, then what? Is there another way? Yes, be intent on doing all actions for my sake. Even by performing actions for my sake, you will attain perfection. You add a sweetness to it. Lord, this is like a flower offering to you. Let me do it with a sense of attention and mindfulness, because it is as delicate, as profound, as heartfelt as if I was offering flowers at your feet in a shrine, or if I was offering a beggar charity. All actions, all energy belongs not to me anyway, it belongs to the Lord of the universe. It belongs to divine energy. It's not my energy. I'm not pumping my heart independently. I'm not squeezing my lungs to make breathing. I'm not lifting up the piston of the diaphragm muscle to breathe. I'm not renewing the cells. I'm not digesting my food. Why should I claim that I'm doing it, or assume that I'm doing it, or even worse, not be grateful for having that facility being done for me? You know, if we in a factory, if you see machines working, you would assume that some energy, some electrical power is behind it. Even in the old days of Roman engineering, superb engineers, where much of the engineering was to do with water wheels, either horizontal or vertical, pumping water, allowing water actually to travel miles and miles and miles through aqueducts. What superb engineering it was. And coming out even as a fountain or drinking water or whatever it was through pipelines. Oh, they were made of lead, but don't worry about that. They didn't know about that. Never mind. Superb engineering taking place. So, even behind that, it's water that is powering it. Water is the electricity of the day. So we must also find a clue when something moves. There's a mover somewhere. There is a potentiality behind it. Don't think that the light bulb knows how to give you light by itself independently. It doesn't. The electrical current is behind it. And behind that, the association with the electrical field and the light bulb itself is human ingenuity. Where is that coming from? Don't be arrogant to say, oh, man has done it. No. Built on the shoulders of giants, no doubt. But what gives somebody the original inspirational spark to make the discovery? What gave them the curiosity? What gave them the creative imagination? What gave them the ingenuity itself? Behind everything is a universal cause. That universal cause, religion calls God. And so if you're incapable of this constant practice that is designed by splitting the day up into memorable moments where we bring the mind back, where we make a recollection, where we repeat our mantra continuously, where we say in a commanding way, oh, attention, I see you've wandered, come back. Then you perform all actions with an attitude of worship. Now, have you included everybody? Well, what about if you cannot even do that? Well, Krishna doesn't give up on you. He continues to say, Atayad apyashakto si kartum vadyogam asritaha. If you're unable even to do this much, then take refuge in me. Here we can recall very strongly Girish Chandra Ghosh, the well-known bohemian kind of actor of the Bengali stage, who did not really live a very moral life. And so he says, I cannot do this, we'll use these words, I cannot do this abhyasa yoga, this spiritual practice, I can't do this meditation. Can you think of God once? Not even that. All right. Then you don't have to do everything, was Ramakrishna's advice. Oh, I'm delighted. Okay, yeah, but I'll do it all for you. So you give me your power of attorney. I'll manage it. He was delighted until he realized this is the most difficult path. Because surrendering, taking refuge in that alone, one day he said, I'll do this. No, wait, Ramakrishna corrects it. You have no power to do anything to it. I have to make the decision for you. I'm paraphrasing. He realized he had no independence. So complete submission, taking refuge in me. Refuge means we're under attack somewhere. And where can we take refuge? No, the person who doesn't have any self-control will take refuge in the external things. Drugs, drinking, profligate life and so on. Hedonism. But no, that only compounds the pain. Oh, what you do, and creates addictions and what have you. Drags one down physically, mentally, gives you psychosis, drags society down as a whole. No, if you have to take refuge in anything, take refuge in what Jesus called the living waters. Make me the shade of you. I'm the shady tree. You can sit under me. I'll look after you in a motherly way. I'm doing it anyway, but you recognize it. So take refuge in me, be self-controlled, and renounce the fruit of all your actions. In other words, let go of all the results. This is truly karma yoga. And even a little bit of this practice will have its rewards. Understand, nothing belongs to me. So then he makes a ranking of values. See? It begins, Shreyohi Jnanam Abhyasa. Better is knowledge than just blind practice. You say, I'm a good person. I go to the temple, I go to church, I go to this, I go to that, I go to the mosque every Friday, whatever it is. I give charity to the poor, I do my dues, I'm a good person. Well, What is your motive behind it? Are you doing it as blind practice? Are you doing it? Are you lighting a lamp because your mother did it and her mother did it? That's called blind faith. And in Vedanta, we eschew blind faith. We throw it off and put it under the heading superstition. If you don't know why you're doing it. And superstition carries over from our childhood very often. Don't walk under a ladder. Never walk under a ladder. Never do this, never do that. And anyway, things are going well, touch wood. Well, all of this is probably carried over from your childhood, what we call in transactional analysis parent script. But if there's no reason behind it, earlier I was telling our devotee here about reminiscences of Swami Vivekananda. One of the reminiscences comes from the one who became Sister Christine, wonderful, wonderful, saintly lady. And she recalls, one day I saw Swami Vivekananda giving his opinion about this and that and the other child marriage and so on and so forth, criticizing it heavily. The next day he was praising it. And I said, you're a contradiction. You're saying this today, but yesterday you said something different. And his final thing was, you have to understand, I'm thinking aloud. In other words, I'm tackling something from every single angle I can think of and making my own independent conclusions about something. And when one argument is weaker than the other, then the other wins the day, see. So we should bring in some kind of reasonableness. This here is called knowledge, jnana. So knowledge is better than blind practice. Knowing why you're doing something is better. And better than that, better than knowledge in spiritual practice we're talking about, is meditation. In other words, doing it with understanding. And better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of your action. That's the final conclusion. Disown all your activities. Disown the effects. In other words, don't be future-orientated. Live in this present moment. Do all activities with a sense of attention, devoutness, worship, and leave off the results. Don't even worry about the results. You're not there to do the results. You're simply there to do the action as a sacred activity. That's renunciation. What is renunciation? Renunciation is giving up all the fruits of your activities. Not being attached to them. They don't belong to you. Give them back to the owner. Jesus puts the scenario in a vineyard. Same scenario he puts it. And then, of course, the 12th chapter ends off with the traits, devotees' divine traits. It takes us from the 13th stanza to the 20th. And let us look at them to see what the results of all of this practice will give us. Well, he who hates no being, who is friendly and compassionate to all. This is a list, a checklist of values. And when you want to take stock and you want to be humble, see how much of this applies to you. So he who hates no being, who is friendly and compassionate to everyone, who is free from the feeling of I and mine, even-minded in pain and pleasure and forbearing, ever content, contemplative, self-controlled, and possessed of firm conviction, with his mind and intellect dedicated to me. Well, that devotee is very dear to me. Me, Krishna, standing in as God. He from whom the world gets no trouble, and whom the world cannot trouble, who is free from joy, envy, fear, and worry. He's dear to me because all of these are passing emotions, even joy. He was independent, pure, efficient, indifferent, untroubled, and who is selfless in all his undertakings. He who neither rejoices, nor dislikes, nor grieves, nor desires, who renounces good and evil, both, and is full of devotion. He was the same to enemy and friend, and also in honor and dishonor, who is the same in cold and heat, pleasure and pain, free from attachment, to whom praise and blame are equal. You praise me, I inflate. You blame me, I deflate. Who is silent, content with anything, homeless, steady-minded, homeless, you may add, for the whole world is your home, full of devotion. Those devotees who follow this nectar-like religion that has been described by these various methods, with faith and with me as their supreme goal. This is repeated. Make me your supreme goal, are exceedingly dear to me. So that is just a little bit about sadhana, spiritual practice. Anybody can do it. Where do we start? What is the spiritual practice for a housewife to be a housewife? For a student to be a good student? For a husband to be a good husband, a wife to be a good wife, a child to be an obedient child, good child, a scientist to be a good scientist, a humanist to be a good humanist, a military person or a policeman to be a good person, a good policeman, an efficient policeman, or an efficient soldier. You see, very often the whole Mahabharata war and the Bhagavad Gita in particular is accused. Krishna is somebody dedicated to violence. I'm right now editing something on the curriculum for junior schools. And there comment Hinduism, some scriptures advocate war in certain circumstances. No advocation of war, but do your duty, advocation of duty, do your duty. And if your duty is defense, that's what you do. And so the whole of this dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna is, do your duty. That's it. Your duty as a military person, that's what you're skilled in. It's like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle, every little piece must fit in. And that creates harmony. You could complete the whole jigsaw, which ceases to be a puzzle anymore. Where life is a puzzle, that's because we haven't fitted the pieces in harmony. We'll learn to do that. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thanks. All right. Good.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.